Hey Internet, it's RJ. Welcome back. Thanks for tuning into the show today. Now, today's episode, a little bit of story time here. We'll talk about one of the questions or accusations I get the most, and that is of being a Chase homer. How did you get started with Chase? Why do you have so many Chase cards? Why do you like them so much? Of course, we will cover all of that and more. So, of course, if that sounds interesting to you, then go ahead, press the subscribe button, and let's get to work. Now, Chase specifically ends up being an interesting topic because, one, they generally have the more competitive cards, but number two, they have a rule called 524, which you might have heard of. So, briefly, if you're new here, it's Chase's rule that if you've been approved for 5 or more new credit card accounts in the last 24 months, you are going to get denied. Now, we have a full video on this, but, of course, there's nuance to this, like business cards generally don't report to personal credit, for example, so you can get by with that. But long story short, what this comes down to is a lot of folks end up figuring out about credit cards, and you get one, and you're like, this is cool. Then you go all over the place getting all the offers. By the time you realize 524 is a thing, you're already locked out because, again, it's 24 months. You can't get any Chase cards for 2 years, and, that means you'd have to cool down on applying for other personal cards. But I never actually ran into that problem. So how did I master this? Well, the answer is very clearly I'm just a prodigy and born to play this game. Clearly, I don't know why you even asked the question. No, that's not the answer. But if you can take a look at, this is my wallet where I store the majority of my cards. And this whole side, there's an Amex card here, but this whole side is Chase cards. These aren't even all my Chase cards. So, in the wallet, I've got a Sapphire Preferred, 2 Freedoms, 2 Freedom Flexes, an Amazon Prime card, an Ink Cash card, and then not featured in this, I have an Ink Unlimited, an Ink Preferred, I've had the Ink Premier, I've actually had the Sapphire Reserve, I had another Ink Unlimited, I had a Marriott card, which is quite a bit of Chase cards. My first Chase card is dated 2013, so I've been at it for a while, but I've never really run into 524 issues. And, it has actually nothing to do with credit cards, believe it or not. Over time, I ended up liking Chase credit cards, as you can see. But it has much more to do with this. Well, this is an iPhone 15 Pro, but really it has more to do with the iPhone 4 or 4S it was back in the day. You see, if we go back to our story time now, your parents set you up with your first checking account. For me, it was like some Midwest credit union. And, I think I remember throwing a temper tantrum because I didn't really understand why they were taking my money. If I don't have my money, where's my money? I just really didn't care for it, which is funny because now I have a whole second channel and website dedicated to churning and burning bank promotions. But, hey, we all start somewhere. And so, they make, over time, as you get older, my parents made sure I had the basic starter credit card from them, $500 limit, and, the checking account. And they was like, okay, you're good to go. We got you your banking products. Go on out into the world. But when you start working, then you start taking more notice because you start interacting with banks more. And I just remember being very annoyed at this bank. It sucked. But I didn't have much experience with other banks, but youngsters may forget, to deposit stuff, to withdraw stuff, you had to fill out deposit slips, which was awful. It means you need to remember your account number to write on the form. I remember trying to get a credit limit increase on that card, and they gave me just like a form to fill out, and they never followed up with me. So it was very awful, and I didn't care for it, but I didn't really know what else was out there. Until Chase comes in, and Chase has the mobile app. Now, again, you might say, dude, the mobile app, not that big of a deal, but if you go back to 2007, when the iPhone originally launched, it didn't have the App Store. It was basically just an iPod and a phone. It's what he was on stage talking about. He's like he called it an iPod, an internet communicator, and a phone. Like, that's what it was. There was no App Store. I think it came out with the 3G or the 3GS. So by the time, because the iPhone originally launched on Singular or AT&T, and my parents were not going to switch phone carriers so we could get an iPhone. They didn't care, didn't understand it, no interest. So I couldn't actually get an iPhone until, it came to Verizon. I guess at that age you could have gotten your own phone plan like an adult, but who wants to be an adult? So anyways, that's when I was like, this bank sucks. And then Chase comes out with the app, and you can take pictures of your checks, and you can, do all the mobile banking stuff. And so my mom would take me to the local Chase branch because, yes, you probably could open it yourself, but I had no idea how to do this stuff. So it takes me to the local Chase branch so I could open a Chase account. Nothing to do with credit cards. I was just sick of the credit union and having to deal with all these deposit slips. And Chase, you could walk up there with your debit card and they just read it and like, oh yes, here's your account. Their ATMs were better. Again, this stuff matters less now. But back then, the app was so revolutionary that I ended up joining Chase because of that. Had nothing to do with credit cards, right? So fast forward later to the credit card piece. Again, my first Freedom card is dated 2013. I think since I've worked in banking, I've always wanted to look like a banker at the time, which is funny because now I just wear the same black shirt all the time. But back then, to be a banker, you're talking bespoke suit, bespoke shirt, which is a fancy way of saying someone measures you up and sends the measurements to Italy. They make it at the mill, they send it back to you. So I was buying some shirts. It was maybe like $150 a dress shirt, something like that, which may be a lot to you, maybe a little to you if you live in that world. But anyhow, I'm already with Chase. So you're telling me I can get this Freedom card, and it was like, I don't know, spend $500 to get $200 back. I need to spend this money anyways, and that basically it's like a free shirt. Yep, all right, done. Sign me up for the Freedom card, and that's the only card I had for a while. And then I remember the Freedom Unlimited came out in 2016 or 2015, and that was very obvious. 1.5 is better than 1x on everything. Easy enough. Got that one. I remember when the Sapphire Reserve came out, which is really when credit card YouTube started to take off. I don't really think people were talking about this too much until the Sapphire Reserve in 2016 with the 100K offer. I did not do the 100K offer because I still couldn't get around a $450 annual fee at that point. But that's really how I got it. Now, I did go out to American Express for a little bit, realized I didn't like them too much, and quickly got back under 524 and just kept going with Chase cards because I knew them and I liked them. And by then I knew about 524, but really that's kind of how it started. It had nothing to do with credit cards. It started with just the credit union was awful and I wanted a better bank, and they have the app and it really won me over. Which is kind of funny because if you think about it, Malcolm Gladwell has a book called Outliers where he writes that he looks at hockey players, for example, in Canada. He's like, what makes these players so much better than their contemporaries? And yes, you need talent and skill and all that, but one thing he figured out, which now isn't, that groundbreaking, but back then when he wrote it, it probably was more interesting. It was that, in Canada, or I think they do it here too, for people with kids, you can weigh in. You have to be born at a certain date to be able to enter in preschool or kindergarten or first grade, whatever it is, that fall semester. So if you were born, but you just missed the cutoff, well then you would, age one more year, and then the following year when you could go to first grade or whatever it is, you're a year older, a year bigger, you're stronger and faster than all the kids you're playing with. And that starts to matter more and more as you get older. So you've got this built-in advantage. It doesn't mean you weren't talented, but he's basically talking about circumstance and situation definitely plays a part in people's talent or people's success rate. Bill Gates being born right as the computer era was taking off, makes Bill Gates. There's probably people just as smart as him, but if you were born when we were on typewriters, well, you're not going to have a whole lot of luck. And that's kind of how I equate my success to getting all these Chase cards. They were building a Chase branch at the corner from where I live, right? There's a Chase branch in between my work and my gym, and there was a Chase branch on campus. So that was it. There weren't really that many others at the time. So I'm in the right place at the right time to be in this game and beat 524. So a lot of it wasn't actually up to me. And it's funny because now I have all their credit cards, but it had nothing to do with their cards. It had everything to do with the mobile app, making banking that much easier. Now, of course, I've gotten all my Chase cards. I've lapped Chase basically, and I am way over 524 at this point. But, overall, that is how it happened. Now, final thought. Again, regardless of if you like Chase cards, you think they're keeper cards. For me, many of their cards are keeper cards. Again, these are the cards that I use are actually keeper cards. So for me, these are all keepers. But even if you don't like them, there's just so much money up for grabs. We've seen ink cards at $900 offers. We've seen sapphire cards at $900 offers. So even if you don't like them, it still makes much more sense to maximize getting Chase counts before you branch out. And again, if you like travel cards, which I tend to not to, but if you like travel cards, when there's even more value. So again, regardless if you like them or not, it still makes sense to prioritize 524. Just unfortunately, many of us learned about 524 too late. But overall, that's why I did. Now, additionally, I like Chase because they're easy to deal with from a standpoint of their rules. They've never really gotten too upset if you buy gift cards with their Freedom category cards. Again, they've let me have multiple Freedom cards, all that good stuff. So overall, though, that is the answer. That is why I've become it seems as if I'm becoming a Chase homer, although now I'm more of a fan of Bank of America, given the higher rewards I can get with their cards, but that doesn't catch many headlines. So there is the answer for you. If you've ever wondered how I got started with Chase cards, time and place, or just born to play the game. Up to you. Either way, guys, that's been it for this one. So, of course, if you liked it, drop me a thumbs up down below. If you found it particularly interesting, consider subscribing to the channel. So we're posting content just like this every single week, right back every Sunday with all the news you can use in the week that wasn't credit and finance. And, of course, every single day over on ProfitableContent.com, the channel's blog, where we have the latest news stories. We have bank promotions, and we have credit card offers from Chase, of course. So if you're looking for a new bank or a new credit card, we have you covered, and you can start your own journey like this. Anyways, guys, that's going to do it for this one. As always, thank you so much for watching, and talk to you very soon in the next one.